This episode of Going Forward is brought to you by Optimizer, an award-winning PPC management tool used by advertisers worldwide. Save time and boost the performance of your PPC campaigns on Facebook, Amazon, and Google or Microsoft. Get a 14-day free trial at optimizer.com/go/VIP. All right, everyone, I want to welcome you to an episode of Going Forward. This is where we have meaningful conversations with entrepreneurs and leaders. And today, I have a really different kind of leader on the line with me today. We were talking before the call, and his name is Kurt Long. He's an entrepreneur and he's a philanthropist. And he said a couple things that hit a really good button for me about being an entrepreneur. It's not just about the money; it's about the people. And I asked him, earlier, man, you've had just an amazing career. And he said, I guess when you go back and you look at it on paper, I guess it is. So I want to welcome Mr. Kurt Long, who to the Going Forward podcast. Kurt, for those folks who've never heard of you, please introduce yourself to them. Let them know exactly who you are.
Thanks, Eric. And I am a longtime entrepreneur for the last 30 years, and I've founded 4 separate companies. The latest one is BUNKR. We're working on that now. The previous 3 were all meaningful businesses and acquired by public companies or significant private equity firms. My career started in Kennedy Space Center with a great group of people that have shaped me for my entire life, along with my wife, who I've been married to for 37 years. And we grew up together, if you will, and have come to do everything in our life together as a partnership. I've always been a very physical person in terms of sport and adventure. And so at different times that slows down a little bit because of responsibilities, but overall, I've never stopped throughout my career, also having a personal life that, you go out and do things you've never done before, and think of travel should be something that changes who you are at its best.
Yeah.
It's not, it's great to go relax, but I'm really looking for experiences that make me come back and become a different person, a more informed person, and hopefully a more even compassionate person, to the people of the world here.
Yeah, Bill Murray said something. He said, if you want to know if you should marry someone, you travel the world with them before you actually propose to them. And I thought that was really, it's truthful. It's really
Probably a good idea.
So, well, congratulations to you and Teresa on 37 years of marriage. And, it's always good to see when people can make one another better. And, especially being an entrepreneur, you can't do it unless you have some people supporting you. And sounds like Teresa's that support. So
Yes.
I want to back up a little bit. You talked about your career, but I want to go back to the NASA days. Now,
Yeah.
in the beginning, I said, man, how do you go from rockets to revenue? So,
Yeah.
but tell me a little bit about NASA and then how that helped you in the business world. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. So started out at Kennedy Space Center and worked in it's a little complicated, but it's called the Real-Time Space Shuttle Launch Data Bank. And we kept track of all the commands and measurements for the shuttle itself, the solid
Mhm.
rocket boosters, external tank, and all the ground equipment. And what you can get out of that is,
Wow.
we had a lot of responsibility. And my primary boss, Bill Galloway, he was a electrical engineer, graduated from Berkeley, and he he demanded perfection. And he would tell us, "Hey, listen, if
Wow.
we make mistakes and they turn on the cabin lights and the wing flaps move, it's a major problem." So at a very young age, I graduated from university at 21, went straight into that profession, and like all 21-year-olds, a little immature,
Yeah.
but I had very, very demanding people around me where excellence was expected. And some of those demands, Eric, I'm sure you've been through this a little bit. People that are demanding on you, that might hurt in the moment, but every
Yeah.
day that goes by, you're like, oh my gosh, Bill, and Rupert and Mickey and these other people, I'm so glad you were hard on me and shaped the rest of my career. And then
Yeah.
specifically, just a couple takeaways. You
Y-
might not think of this, but like truth. it sounds like a funny thing to say, but launching rockets makes you value truth. Like everything has to go perfectly. You're
Wow.
launching something super powerful, and you're trying to launch you're launching the Hubble Space Telescope, and it's got to come out of the payload bay. It has to go into orbit at a specific place, and if everything isn't perfect, it goes wrong.
You got
And
one
so
shot.
you got one shot, and like there's no BS, there's
Right.
no waving your hands, it either works or it doesn't work.
Right.
And then when you take that to a startup, there's only you're exposed to the brutal truth, which is, do you have a market fit for your product or not? And you can talk all you want, but at the end of the day, people are either buying it or they're not buying it.
Hmm.
And so this kind of hard truth, is part of that startup environment, and risk management and some other concepts. But I'm going to stick with hard truth. Eric, that's what I was in the business of, and that's what I feel like I'm in the business of with startups.
Do you think some entrepreneurs, even now, people getting into it, and even experienced entrepreneurs, that they still run from the truth, and that's where
Oh
some of the
yeah.
troubles can come from? I mean, tell me about that. Where you've seen it, where it's like,
uh,
just stick to the truth and you'll be okay.
well, I mean, we all tell ourselves stories. Even, you're absolutely is the answer to your question. And the
Mhm.
entrepreneurs that make it tend to be able to listen to things that are uncomfortable. And boy, none of us want to hear that maybe we're off the market, or we're not marketing this well, we're not communicating it well, we're not market fit, the product broke, whatever. There's so many things that have to go right.
Right.
And the entrepreneurs that have the most trouble, they have a repeat thing in their head, and they don't adjust, and they're unable to listen, and they cancel out those voices that maybe disagree with them. And the best ones can have a vision. They're confident, but they can take in a lot of different information and kind of vet out the bad stuff, and vet in the stuff that makes them better. And so
Hmm.
it's a huge part. Yeah.
I mean, like, so when you were going into business, like you just mentioned, making sure that you have a product or service that people actually
Mhm.
want to buy and they're going to
Yeah.
spend money on. So, did you do some kind of due diligence, or did you just fall into something? Because a lot of people, I've heard them say before, they've been on this podcast and they would say, I did this by accident. And then you'd
Yeah.
find very few who say, I just had the love for this and money meant nothing. I just wanted to do this and be better at it.
Yeah. We'll come. I want to stick a little bit on this market fit idea. I do want to come back to what at the core of what I think is being an entrepreneur is all about. But let me stick on the market fit thing.
Hmm.
So in the early days, I fell into it a little bit more. Got involved when the internet was emerging as a commercial viability, and everything's growing, and you could kind of attach yourself to just about anything, and it would grow. And then the as I did this a few times, I started realizing, like, oh wait, like I'm an engineer, and I'm kind of being an engineer led. Here's my solution. Um, how do I market it? How do I sell it? And how do I service it? And by the time I did, say, FairWarning as the third company, it was the opposite of that. I
Mm.
was like, okay, the engineering's last. I want to know what market, what problem am I solving? Who am I solving it for? Where do they get their information about products like this? What sales channels do they look at, and what distribution channels does that go through? And then only then, after the what problem, who, where they look, how do they buy it, then I built the product. As opposed to the early days, you kind of like build a product and then look
Yep.
around in the market for where do you jam it. That could work. I mean, you could get super lucky and it could get some size to it, but it's usually super inefficient. So by the time we did FairWarning, I had it down decently well, and it was 100% opposite of what I thought of as a 33-year-old engineer.
Mhm. Now, you people heard you mention Fair Warning. Tell people that
Yeah,
was a company that you had back in the early 2000s, and I think up to like 2018 was when
yeah,
you sold it out. Tell people about Fair Warning, and then
yeah.
I want to go into engineering entrepreneurship, talking about entrepreneurship.
Sure. Fair Warning, it was 2005 through 2018. We sold the majority of it 2018, and then it was acquired by a large company called Imprivata in complete at the end of 2019. It still operates. We invented the idea of protecting patient data, patient records within a health system and electronic health records. And no one had ever done that before, of
Wow.
saying we're going to exclusively focus on protecting large and small health systems. And it turns out that, is that a real market? Well, you don't quite know, but my theory was, listen, the banks have already been beat up by the identity thefts, the bad
Oh, yeah.
guys, the cybercrime. These health systems, they got a lot of the same data. They have super sensitive information. It's a matter of time before the bad guys point at them. So I was
Hmm.
way out ahead on it. And then eventually the bad guys got there, medical identity theft, and they would steal, and still do today,
Wow.
steal patient information and take that information, sell it on the dark web, and then package it up, run it through false clinics and fake businesses, and false bill Medicare for many, many millions of dollars. So they'd steal the information,
Wow.
package it, sell it, and it could even falsify your own medical records, Eric, because if they don't know the blood type in whatever claim they're submitting, they just fill one in,
Wow.
and that could wind up in your health record. So it was
Yeah.
kind of medical identity theft was the first identity theft that it could kill, and that could kill. And we're the only people that had believed in that market and readied for it. And so when the Affordability Act came along, and the stimulus bill from the Obama days came along, it had a ton of protection for patients in it, and we were, you say stand at the right place at the right time. It's really a matter of, hey, being in the game. You got to
Yeah.
stay in the game, man, and you get lucky the longer you stay in the game. And yeah, that huge success for everybody involved. Like a 50 to 100x for investors. I had one friend, Mike Cole. When he knew I was going to start another company, he just said, "Listen, here's $10,000. I don't care what you do.
I just want to
Um,
be on that train.
I want to be on it." And we turned that into $1 million.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to do that for my childhood friends that were like, "Whatever you do, we're putting money in." And to it's super rewarding, Eric, to know that you made your childhood friends and best friends millions and millions of dollars. That part of the money super rewarding.
Right. Remind me to give you $10,000 before we get off this call today. Okay. All right. So now you talked about, market ready early and then,
Yeah,
right, being lucky at the right time.
yeah,
I've always remembered, people saying, if you come too early with a great idea, they're going to either say you are crazy or a genius. It just depends on how it
yeah.
happens.
100%. And you don't know which you are. You're sitting there, in the early days, you're literally sitting there like, wow, so nobody's that interested. Uh, and we think this is a big problem,
Hmm.
and you have to seriously reflect. Am I
Right.
crazy, or are we just one big break away from this taking off?
Yeah.
And that is absolutely what happened. So it took us a little while to get going. For say 2005, it really wasn't until 2009 till things started taking off.
Wow.
But you kind of have to test from time to time. You want to go back and test your foundational assumptions.
Yeah.
And it's like my assumption was the bad people will eventually get to healthcare, and they're going to figure out all that data is there. And when they do, they're going to go after them. And
Goodness.
so you're just kind of sitting there making sure that your primary assumptions are correct. And that if you are, you're looking for evidence. You don't just trust your own head. You're looking for third party evidence that you're
Hmm.
not crazy. And it worked out. It worked out really well in this case.
I want to go back to the core when you mentioned Bill, Mickey, and I think Rupert is who
Yeah.
who it
Yep.
was.
That's right.
And you
That's a
mentioned
really good memory.
you mentioned them early, and you talked about how first you said Bill and how tough he was with you, and
Yeah.
then you mentioned the three of them together. And then
Yeah.
as you went into entrepreneurship, right? And you
Yep.
said, I'm going full at it. Did you have this mindset, or let me ask you this way. Do you believe like it really hurts an entrepreneur's chances when they go into the mindset of creating a business just for money?
So let me take there's a lot in there, so let me give you two or three things. The first thing
Okay.
is we also had Beth Dykema in there, and we had Kathy Shockey in there. So you had this group of people. I was a young guy. I told you I was 21. I mean,
Right.
you're a kid.
Right.
Well, they treated me like I was a family member, and sometimes you felt like, hey, listen, they treat me better than my family, and they brought me along. They must have seen something in me. I mean, I don't want to
Mm.
take away from myself completely, but I tried to serve what what they needed out of me and deliver for them. But on the other hand, in a position of responsibility like that, you don't know what you don't know. So they were
Yeah.
very, they could be a little bit hard, but overall they were unbelievably kind to me, even though they were demanding and took me from point A to point B, C, D, whatever. And when I left, they treated me like family. Dell Coffee, he brought me in his office once and he said, "Hey, listen, Kurt, we've given you a lot of raises here over the years, and I'm going to be forthright with you. The program's cutting back, and I'm not going to be able to give you the raises that I once did. And um, you should seriously think about leaving. You can do more than this, than what I can do for you."
Wow,
And so,
what a leader. Wow.
yeah, so you're like, you absorb that, and you're like, okay, I trust and love Dell, and I believe he has my best interests. And
Mhm.
maybe a year later, I left. And so, and I went to a major company. I
Yep.
went to IBM, which had the most unbelievably smart people you could possibly imagine.
Mhm.
But we couldn't make it work. We just couldn't. We couldn't get that common vision. We couldn't get that teamwork that we had at the Space Center. And so, my burning desire as an entrepreneur was, can I create a business that we treat each other great, that we respect each other? And that's not the
Oh.
easiest thing to do as a young person. How do we create an environment where there's total trust, shared vision? We love to
Mhm.
come to work. We're all in it together. And Eric, that is the number one driving force of my early days of being an entrepreneur, is could I recreate the wonderful environment that
Wow.
we had from those men and women. And we had so many great people in the space program. My favorite astronaut, and I'm just jamming this in because
Mm.
I may or may not fit. I'm jamming in. Guy named Ron McNair. Um, if
Mm.
you don't know him, I really encourage you to look him up.
And a Challenger,
Uh,
right? Wasn't he in the Challenger?
that Yeah,
Yep.
Challenger. So he
Mhm.
kind of, I felt like, okay, Ron's
86.
no, that's exactly right. So Ron was an astronaut on Challenger. He was a seventh degree black belt, a PhD in physics. He had passed through the astronaut program. He had done all that. He had won national karate championships. And to be forthright with you, when he
Wow.
went to read books and check books out of the Mississippi Library as a kid, they didn't let him. They told him no.
Good hair.
They said, "Well, we're going to call your parents." He said, "Okay, call my parents." Parents
Mm.
came. Said, "We're still not letting you sit." He says, "I don't care. I want the books." The cops came. He would not. I didn't know all this about him.
Wow.
I didn't know it all. I just found out later. I just admired him. And so you're talking about what I believe are some of the greatest men and women ever, certainly at that time.
Mm.
And it's like, hey, do something here with your life. This guy gave his life to what he believed in. So surely, I can pick the ball up here and do something with my
Yeah.
life. And that's kind of the summary of that whole Kennedy thing.
I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was someone from South Carolina who was actually on that. I can't
Ron was
remember.
from South Carolina. I want to say
That's
Ron McNair was South Carolina.
that's
You
probably
might
because I
Probably
remember
him.
us, in '86,
Yep.
going outside to see, like, if we can see it going up in the air, so I still remember that, to
Yeah.
this day. There's some things in history you'll never forget. That's a Challenger, 9/11, things like that, man, so,
Yeah. So when I
Beth.
said I went back and got the master's degree, that's what was that. Like, we were
Mm.
supposed to sit around there for a couple years, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to go take a couple years off, get a degree. Still love science and math and all
Mm.
this. and did that. Came back for the next launch and was part of
Mhm.
Hubble and all this stuff.
So
Um, yeah, go ahead.
let's go into entrepreneurship now,
Yep.
because some of what I heard you talk about, a lot of things that also saw when I began, our company, or when I started working in corporate area, right? And
Yeah.
I had those influential people. For me, it was a guy by the name of Dave Lutton. I mean, he saw talent in me that I didn't see in myself,
Yes.
and he was so dang on hard on me, man. And I talk to him still to this day, right?
Yes.
But like he would see things in me. I wouldn't want to come to work. He didn't know I was a kid, teenager. The more I worked, the
Yeah.
more I stayed out of trouble. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. But there's those people that actually shape you in life, and they instill these things into you. But I saw the way he managed, and the way he managed me, I loved it because I can
Yes.
look back now and say, "Man, that made me better." But can
Yes.
you manage it's hard to manage people today the way that I was once managed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's a different, we get older and generations change. And I listen, I was not as, you'd call it, use the word tough. I was not as tough as the guys who came before me. They were farmers, and they fought in wars. And so, to them, I was probably a bit soft. And they found a way to make it with me and make me a little tougher, I hope. And so I think we have to do that with the next generation. We all, and think we're a little tougher than these guys and gals. But you just got to find a way to communicate. And just like at the team at Bunker, we had to learn about each other. This is the youngest group I will have worked with in my, in the history of companies here. And they're young people. They see the world a little differently. And when we spend enough time together,
Mhm,
we get on the same page. I think I adjust a little bit and they adjust. And I tell you what they respond to over time
mhm.
is if they believe that you are authentic in your desire to see them become better in every way, and you're authentic in your desire that your product make the world a better place. And I think if they see that enough and
Wow.
enough and enough, and you see that they have talent in there that I certainly don't have, and that you value them, that I think you eventually can get to the same spot, you know,
Wow.
common vision, personal accountability, transparency. Let's get this done no matter what it takes. And we're going to be respectful, very respectful of one another. And
Mhm.
it's worked.
Well, it takes a certain kind of leader nowadays, and the truth is you can't manage everyone the same, you have to manage them differently, and
That's right.
I think it's really where you have to really get to know the people that
You're
you work
right.
with, get to know them, and like you said earlier, like, those people are on board, and not once did you mention money. Not once did you mention money. I mean,
Money's so
we're in the
rarely the problem. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's, yeah. They
we
they
know
want more
it's
money,
important.
we know that. I mean, we
Yeah.
know they have growing lives, they're getting mortgages, they're having, they're starting to have kids. Of course they need money. Of course. And when there's the financial pressure on their side adds
Mhm,
up to where they can't stay,
mhm.
well, they're going to leave. So
Right.
you try to get ahead of that. You try to get ahead of them getting frustrated and disgruntled, because once they're there, they're gone. So you got to try to stay ahead of that, if
Mhm.
that makes any sense.
It does. So, what are some of the big challenges that you face as an entrepreneur? You've been around the block. I mean, and you've worked in different areas and with different people. What are some of the challenges that you've faced?
I think there's macro level challenges. This is a pretty tough environment. So the macro level challenges are there's the big companies are really big, and they offer really
Mm,
good products. Like these are really good products that you're up against, and they have access to a lot of funding. And when I say that, like the big names, the Googles, the
yeah.
Microsofts, the Apples, they clearly don't need. They have their own capital, but they make good product.
Hmm.
And then even the companies that are emerging, when you get a winner, they get a lot of money poured in. So the competition is locked in. They're better than ever, and you're going to have to deal with that in the marketplace. The next part I would say, Eric, is people. I think people. want a story that they believe in around your product. So it's not
Mm,
enough just to have like a better mousetrap or a better product. People are influenced by their belief in your intent,
mhm.
and you need an authentic story that you can live up to and a collection of promises that you're making, that you're ready to live up to those promises that you make, because people can leave your product so easily. There's so many choices.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
those are a couple of them, Eric. There's more, but there's more security threats for sure. Like as soon as you bring a product up that's an app, the world attacks it,
Right.
and they can, oh, okay, can you live through that part of it, so those are three things right off the top of my head that make it tough, and you still have to find a way to make it through and adapt, and I love the challenge I love the challenge of it, to be forthright with you.
All right, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the three things that entrepreneurs must do. Okay. This
Okay,
is
okay.
going forward. All right, guys.
Are we fucking ready? Roll cameras. Action! Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Hov. H to the OV. I used to move snowflakes by the OZ. I guess even back then you can call me CEO of the ROC. Ho, fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I be the music biz #1 supplier. Fly it in a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. That's right.
Hey, it's Eric here from VIP Marketing, and I want to ask you, digital marketers, something. Are you frustrated with your current PPC marketing campaigns? Well, I want to tell you about a tool that we use here at our agency. It's called Optimizer. You have the ability to get your reports up to date and make sure that you get alerts on them. You can even work into workflows as well. So if you're frustrated with your campaigns right now in the reporting systems that you use, I want to give you a 14-day free trial of Optimizer. Go to optimizer.com/go/VIP. All right, everyone, we are back with he's now my good buddy now. Kurt
Mm.
Long. He's my good buddy now. All right. And we were talking about, entrepreneurship, man. We talked about your ride from rockets to revenue, and there's a lot more in there. We talked about some of the companies that you've done too. And right before the break, I said that I wanted us to come back and talk about three things that entrepreneurs should do. Okay.
Yeah, I'll say, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm
Did you
ready.
have
Let's
more to, okay. Yeah,
go.
so I'm gonna do it super punchy and then let you dive in where you want. And it's not,
Okay.
I bet you're not gonna expect these. The first thing an entrepreneur should do is understand how they want to spend the next 10 to 15 years of your life. Because realistically, that's what it's going to take. You say, I want money. I want, okay, 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 you want money. Well, it turns out that it's a miracle, if you make a bunch of money, by year five. It would just be a miracle. Now, that doesn't say it won't happen, but,
Right.
it
Right.
takes a while. My experience is it takes 10 to 15 years
Hmm.
to create one of these things. So that, and then you want to know how you want to live your life before you jump in to starting that business, because it's going to shape the business. The second thing is, what jobs do you want at your own company? You want to know, in the early days, it might be every job. You have every job at the company because there's no one else. There's one
Hmm.
or two or three of you. But then over time, as it grows, you should know, hey, listen, I want to be the person that sets the culture. I'll tell you where I wound up, Eric. I started out in every company kind of doing everything. And then by the
Okay.
end, I wanted to be the person that shaped the culture, because I think that as a leader, the culture of how you get work done and how you treat everything is whether you even want to come to work or not. So that I think it's
Wow.
absolutely crucial.
Wow.
Next is kind of like I was into patents and innovation, and I wanted to stay focused on that and not get too far track off it. And then like I wanted to make the financing decisions of our big projects. Like I don't want to control budget line items. That's for someone else to do. But
Yep.
for the big initiatives, I say we're going to invest a half a million or $1 million in this. Well, I want to make that decision. So I call myself the financier. Um, and then I would pick out the high level media stuff. I want to do high level media. And that's my job. And if I don't have that job right now, well, what do I have to give away to get there? Because something I'm doing is a promotion for somebody else. And then the last thing, so, how am I spend 10 to 15 years of my life? What jobs do I want? The third thing is what meaning and purpose is there in this enterprise I'm about to launch? And I need to get in touch with the meaning and purpose of this enterprise. Because if I'm going to
Mhm.
do this with all of my heart and we're going to do it over a long period of time, I better be in touch with it. So those are the
Yeah.
three things, Eric, I think people should do before they start a company.
That's a lot. That's a really good inward looking there too. Because I don't know if very many people you can have this vivid vision and say, "This is where I want my company to be," but what you said was, "Where do you wanna be in the next 10, 15
Correct.
years of your life?" That's a huge difference, and because I think a lot of times and even myself, I'm totally guilty of it, Kurt, like, I'm like, "Okay, where do I want the
Yeah.
company to be
Yeah.
in 5 years? Here's my vivid vision," but
Yeah.
I'm not saying where I want my life to
Yeah.
be, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like Warren Buffett says, and I'm sure he didn't invent the phrase, but getting what you want and wanting what you get are two different things. It's, hey, listen, I want to have a company with customers all over the world and a lot of
Right.
employees. Okay. You ever had that before? Well, no. Well, I can tell you, the more employees that you have, there's going to be issues, and you're going to
Mhm,
deal with them. And the more customers that you have, they're going to be demanding,
mhm,
and they're going to be hard on you.
mhm.
And so I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying you better understand that when you wish for it, you're going to get it. Or I want investors. I want venture capitalists in my business. Okay, okay. You did it, and now you have a board of directors.
Mhm.
You're probably an employee now at your company. You're no longer in sole control of that company, and you should. I'm not saying don't get venture capital. I'm just saying when you get it, you're kind of married to them, and you're an employee of the company, an important one, but
Wow.
you're an employee of the company, and all of the dream comes with the parts they don't tell you about, right?
I think a lot of people, shoot, I mean, heck, just like when you become a parent, there's no book. You take that baby home and it's like, you better love them.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
at some point, your love takes over and before you know it, you've raised a beautiful child, right?
yeah, yeah,
And like the same can be said about, building a company. I mean, they got all these entrepreneurs for dummies and business for dummies and everything else, but there's really nothing that teaches you how to have that insight, the foresight, to be able to look at your hindsight and say,
yeah,
this is what it is, and this is how I grow. Some people don't know about financial because I know when I came in, oh man, I knew I was good at what I did, but I had
yes,
no idea. I didn't know anything about the numbers, and that's one of the
yes.
most important parts of the business. And you, being this math genius who launched
No, I
rockets,
don't know about that. Yep.
how important is learning finance and the financials? Uh, how important is that for an entrepreneur?
It's absolute. I think it's essential. It's foundational, and like if before in our preliminary discussion, hey, listen, Eric, I don't have a ton of rules about prescribing how to run a business, but I do have one.
Mhm.
It's don't run out of money. You know, and if you're the CEO and you're the entrepreneur and you're recruiting people into your business,
Mhm.
like, don't you got to make payroll, man. Like
Yeah,
you
man.
you have you got to make payroll.
Gotta make
Well, how do you make payroll? Well, it's something like I've got to have more money coming in than going out.
Yep.
And if I have more going out than coming in over some period of time, I'm going to run out. And so the mechanics, that simple rule that,
Hmm.
that there's an argument to say that's all you need to remember if
Hmm.
you're not a math minded, finance minded CEO. But
Hmm.
don't forget that. Don't run out of money. And then the more you can learn about the finances and learn about, gross margin, that every time we sell a unit, hey, here's the gross margin and here's our fixed overhead. And whether we sell anything or not, we are going to absolutely have to pay, this amount of salary and payroll, and these are the data center bills, and hey, listen, these are the employee bills, and there's a fixed overhead, and we got to cover that.
Hmm.
You know, I personally kept. I wanted to know that. I wanted to understand those really basic comment concepts, but baked in, and then let other people run the details. I hope that made some sense, Eric.
No, it makes a lot of sense too. I think it's you. Are you familiar with Marcus Lemonis?
Uh, I might be. Go ahead.
He started this show called The Prophet, right?
Okay.
And I remember, like when I started watching the show, and he would go in these businesses, normally smaller businesses,
Yes.
and he would, talk to these people about their business. Well, they were great at their business, Kurt, but they didn't know
Yes.
anything about their numbers. So he was like,
Yes.
"You don't know your numbers, you don't know your business."
Yes.
You
Well,
know?
so let me add to your let me add to that of where I think that goes is, let's suppose that you own a small business. It could be a reasonably good sized restaurant, but
Got it?
relatively
Hmm.
small, and you have
Hmm.
$1 million of overhead. Like, in
Hmm.
other words, you're going to pay $1 million out the door.
Got
Well, and that you make $30 a serving. In other words, that table, the gross margin on that table is $30. Well, I think you're going to have to sell, what is that, 33,000
Yeah,
meals
you're gonna have to have a
before you
lot of
ever
tables.
cover the $1 million.
Yeah.
So if you're, as an entrepreneur, if you can drive out the overhead in your business, and drive that down to half a million, well, gosh, now I start making money at my 15,000 meal served. Well, that's a lot better math than 30 whatever thousand. So really, I love those, understanding the fixed overhead
Yeah.
and understanding the gross profit and backing into how many units do we got to sell. That's the level of math I really try to bake in,
Good.
and
Yeah, I remember coming up, before I even got into media, I was in restaurants, and that same guy that I was telling you about, he said, "Look around this restaurant," and he said, "What is the most expensive thing you see here?" And I looked around, Kurt, and I said, "Could it be that grill that we cook the
no,
food on, or could it be the fryers, or could it be the ovens?" He said, "No." He said, "That seat, that empty seat is the most expensive thing in
makes
this
sense.
restaurant." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that
yeah,
lesson sticks with me today, man. He was a
yeah,
good teacher, man.
yeah,
So I want to talk about bunker life because,
yep,
in your earlier business, you were very early with medical records. And
yeah.
now with bunker life, you want to empower households to make sure, like, when they are surfing, surf safe, and protecting their privacy. So let's talk about bunker life a little more.
Yeah, and just real quick on the bunker life part, it's trademarked all around the world as bunker logo. We did a great job of getting the marks on all that stuff, but there's this life part that's in the name of it formally, and it's something like this. It's um, to there's so many threats in the world today online that can, quite frankly, make your life filled with anxiety, frustration, loss of
Hmm.
time, and even loss of money. And we think of Bunker as this safe haven for people to collaborate so they can live the life that they deserve and
Hmm.
spend time on what they value most, whether it's family or travel or food or whatever it is. And the original motivation was that after we sold FairWarning, and we all worked as a family together at FairWarning. The whole family did. Teresa ran a big part of it. Hobie, Trent, our sons, and we now had all of our own administrative tasks. No one to help. And you start realizing, like, wow, just
Oh,
looking through emails and printing things and trying to send files along and remembering passwords and all this stuff. This is super frustrating, and let alone the security part of it and the privacy
wow.
part of it. And how do we create, and weirdly, there's no product out here that puts together invitation only messaging so you can get rid of spam, get rid of fraud attacks,
Mm,
and that you can send large files and send things securely and store your passwords and share seamlessly with a huge emphasis on saving time. There's nothing that really exists like that. So let's put that together and bring it to market. We'll start with our own family first. We'll bring it out to friends and extended family, and it's worked. But the whole idea, Eric, is to save people time, reduce the anxiety, so they don't have to worry about the cyber crimes and imposters, and give them time back in their day so they can
mhm.
spend it on what they want. And that's the life part of it.
So how'd you come up with the name Bunker? Was it
Mhm.
just kind of keeping things safe, like what a bunker does? I mean, how'd you come up with that?
Well, as you know, I mean, coming up with a name in this modern environment would go back to that. It's the namespace is pretty well taken.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's tough. And so eventually, over a course of a couple of weeks of brainstorming names, we got in, the bunker, BUNKR. And it seemed perfect because it is about keeping safe and building trust
Mm,
with the people that you care about most. So it's kind of the most important information of your life is at your fingertips in bunker,
mhm.
and then you can share it safely with the people that you trust most, and no one else can get to it.
Y you know, Private Wealth Magazine did an article on you about keeping things safe, your
Hmm.
information safe in this
Yeah.
AI, day and age, and everywhere you turn, like in the last 24 months, it's AI this, it's AI
Hmm.
that, AI can write your emails for you, AI can do this for you, and it's like, I'm afraid that people won't be able to think anymore. That they'll be so dependent on AI that they'll be afraid to think for themselves. How do you feel about the influx of AI, and coming into the things that we're used to doing every day in our emails and everything else?
So I think I'm going to make 2 points. And the first thing you said, I can't agree with you enough. The first thing is just tactically, when you get those texts that say your Amazon packages arrived, all we need is you to put your credit card number in, or the phone call that says that it's the IRS and you need to call
Mhm,
back, and
mhm.
all of those crazy scams, the scams that your parents might fall for, and on their social media messenger of the person in some country. Those are all just dark web. Your information has been stolen, and now it's robot attacks that are trying to probe for vulnerabilities and weak spaces. And boy, when they find it, they're going to take that for all it's worth. And I had a
Oh my goodness.
ringside seat for the last 20 years of being in information security. The bad guys have no heart. They're looking for the vulnerable, and they don't care if it's the homeless. They don't care if it's your parent. They don't care if it's the mentally ill. They don't care if it's the patient with a chronic disease. They are monsters looking to exploit vulnerability.
Mhm.
And so with chat, take the natural language AI. I almost said Chat GPT, and there's other open AI.
Yep.
Those are already being purposed, maybe not those specific products, but that genre is being purposed to make the attacks more intelligent. And now that they've got a repository of
Oh,
information about you,
wow.
um, and now I can add AI to deliver more sophisticated attacks,
In
and
messaging.
even and mess in your
Wow.
text message, your social media messenger, your email. Those are all super easy places to run imposter based attacks and scale them up. So like they can run millions of attacks in automated ways. And now to incorporate AI they can prey upon more weaknesses that an old person might have, or any of us might have.
Hmm.
And so the first answer is, hey, you got to protect yourself against those.
Yeah.
And with the bunker thing, it's invitation only. So nobody can send you a message that you don't expect. They can't get to you, is the first part of the answer. The second
Wow.
part is that when you say, are we afraid of people not being able to think? The answer is yes. Like, AI should be serving humans, not humans serving AI. AI should be used to enhance expert. It
Wow.
should be being used where there's a human in the loop at all times in key decision makings. And you may or may not know about, say, parole decisions that were being used with AI that went afoul because the AI just predicted that people of a common background really had no chance that they'd get out of prison and reform themselves. And there's no human element to it. And my
Wow.
belief is, like, there's a divinity to humans. They say, yes, I have made mistakes in the past. Yes, if you were to look at my socioeconomic background and where I come from, yes, it's likely that I'll fall down again. But each of us has this place of divinity in us that says,
Hmm.
no, enough. I've
Yeah.
had enough.
Yeah.
I'm a changed person. And AI has the potential to strip out the divinity, the potential for divinity in us all. And so, in my thoughts, Bunker again gives you that safe place to keep the
Hmm.
most important information, to have your own notes, to share with people that you trust, people that you love. And like, I have in addition to my wills and trusts and passwords and all that stuff, I have folders that I've created. It's like art from around the world that I look at when I'm blue, and look at that art and say, wow, this is the most
Yeah.
beautiful, inspiring thing. So I can center myself back. That's some thoughts, Eric. I'm be curious
Man.
your response.
No, I think that's it's a part of the AI that I have not thought about, on how it can just it can, anything that's meant to be good, like, yeah, I'm in here in the South, and there are people who hate guns, and then there are people who love guns, and it's,
Yes.
the same thing. It's like, that's the tool that's created, and I think it's like there are the bad characters out there who can utilize it to their advantage. For example, someone who is in another country and they don't understand the culture here, or
Hmm.
they can use AI to read into the culture and make those messages
Absolutely.
better to be able to do
Absolutely.
that. I don't want to give you bad guys any, tips out there, because we'll be
Yeah.
coming for you because we got bunker. But
Yeah.
so can you use bunker for like business? Can you use it for
Oh yeah.
business?
Well, I mean, one of the original motivations, look at the use cases. And when I was CEO of, say, FairWarning, but also of Open Network, and other businesses I've run in the past,
Hmm.
one of the biggest challenges was if I tuned out of my messenger, my email, my text messenger, when I turned it back
Hmm.
on, and it could have been on a long flight, it could have been on the weekend, it could have been I just went to play a sport or exercise and I'm going to turn this thing off.
Right.
When I came back to it, my phone, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this explosion in my inbox
Wow.
and you're just literally sitting there thinking, I got to get through this. When am I going to do that? And what you start figuring out is my mind would be blurred by the noise of employees or suppliers, all these people that wanted my attention. And I lost the attention of the people that mattered most. My most important team
Mm.
members at Fair Warning, or my most important customers, or my family that was trying to get through to me. And so with Bunker, I felt like I fixed that problem, because the only people that can get to me in Bunker are the people I trust the most and have given permission to. And
Wow.
so if I open up Bunker, it's like, these are the people that matter to me, my
Hmm.
family, my most trusted business colleagues, and even my most important customers. And yeah, they come first. and then I'll go over here and sort through the spam and the texts and all the other people in a business
Right.
that want your
Right.
attention to shape their agenda. That's not
Hmm.
really there. It's important, Eric, but it's
It's
not
important.
if
It's
I don't
important for
serve
them,
my
not for you.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
you get lost in that.
Oh
And
yeah.
so that was a big part of what Bunker was all about and how we use it for business today.
Hmm.
In addition to, hey, listen, I'm super, super busy. I want everything at my fingertips. I want my passwords at my fingertips. I want this briefing document at my fingertips. I want my travel docs at my fingertips. I want the notes that I made at the last meeting on my fingertips at my fingertips. That's all, no matter where I am in the world, with or without internet connectivity, Bunker puts those at my fingertips.
Oh
So
man,
that's how
that's
I use it.
that is awesome, man. How about a case study? You got any case studies on where it's really helped? I know you use your family kind of as the, I don't want to say the guinea pig, but you guys were
Yep.
actually the first to really utilize it and see its effectiveness. But is there a success story you've seen from the business end on
Yeah.
or personal end where someone's just, it's really saved someone?
So we have I'm gonna let's do cardiovascular surgeon first. A cardiovascular surgeon is a Bunker customer, and for this gentleman, he's always subject to HIPAA, so he's a little worried about the sensitivity of information, and
Mm,
that's carried over into his family communication. He's an Android user, so anytime somebody tries to send him something from an Apple phone, it never works well. He's worried about security. And so he's turned Bunker into his entire platform for his family communications, which includes his wife, who's a nurse, and his extended family, where they travel together and they do business together. So that gentleman uses it within that context. But here's a funner one, and I don't think Ollie would mind me sharing his name on this one. He manages. He's a agent for IMG, and when I say doesn't mind, he doesn't mind. If he does, he'll call me and we'll work that out. He's an agent for the largest sports agency in the world, and he's a partner there, an SVP, and for one of the largest entertainment management companies in the world. So he's traveling all the time, all over the world. He's got super high profile clients. I sat by him. I went to Wimbledon once with him. I went over to the house that IMG was running. His phone is blowing up. That guy's
wow.
phone never stops buzzing. You're like, dude, like, holy cow, I thought my phone was busy. And so he wanted Bunker for his key players to use,
Mhm.
so that they could always get through to him and that they don't have to text him and he has to read through that blur. And then also he's has a wonderful family. He just moved to Portugal. So they're always in different places, and his family can stay in touch with him through Bunker. And he has all of the player passports because it's super high profile athletes, all the player passports, visas, tournament information,
Wow.
everything you can think of at his fingertips and their fingertips. Because a lot of the athletes, they're younger people. And Eric, when I
Mhm.
was 19 or 20, I can tell you I wasn't the most organized person. And that's his
Same here.
role to help keep them organized and help them focus on their craft, which is, hey, you need to be at practice today and
Yeah.
you need to be focused on that match tomorrow, not whether you got the registration and you can't find your passport number right now. We got to get the registration to the tournament. We
Mhm.
got to get you checked in. So those are a couple of use cases.
Wow. Well, that's really good, man. I really have enjoyed talking to you, Kurt, man. And it's I think a lot of people can learn a ton from you along your professional journey, man. And before we go, I want to shout out
Yeah,
some people because I heard you mention some names here.
yeah, yeah.
We want to definitely shout out Teresa for 37 years of marriage to
Thank
you,
you.
man, for
Yeah,
being your better half. Hobie, Trent, Beth
yeah.
Dickinson, Kathy Shockley, Bill, Mickey, and Rupert. Some of the
Yes.
people, some important people in your life, and I bet they are inside of your bunker.
Absolutely, loved ones. We having families great, but having a greater group of people that you love and care about, and that over time they love and care about you is so important.
Awesome, man. So, as we conclude today's episode, Kurt, I would love for you to tell people exactly how to, possibly contact you if they need to, or
Mm.
just, find out more about Bunker. Go ahead and give them, ways to find you.
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Kurt Long at VWM. That means Ventures with Meaning. On Instagram, you can get to me through the Bunker .life account. On LinkedIn, you can look up Kurt Long and just put in Bunker or FairWarning, and I'll be there. And then Bunker is available on the App Store and on the Play Stores all around the world. It's running in 22 countries now. We're about to have a big product launch that I'm really excited about. That'll be September 12th. Even though we have all these customers and users around the world, we haven't really launched it yet, Eric. So that'll be an exciting time coming up.
Well, I'm going to make sure I log on and try and check out Bunker too.
Bunker, yeah.
Kurt, I want to thank you for being an amazing guest. I want to thank those guests out there, for those listeners out there, all those people who are listening to us. Hopefully, you got some value from Kurt and I's discussion today. And also, I want to thank you guys for giving us your most valuable asset, which is your time. It's the one thing you can never buy back. This is going forward. I want to thank you all for giving us your most valuable asset, your time. And also a huge thank you to our sponsors over at Optimizer. For all of you who are running PPC campaigns and you want to see how to do it better and get better results and actually boost the performance of your campaigns and save time, get a free trial at optimizer.com/go/VIP.